So this video was meant really to be a 6 months later video, and I actually started writing the script back in October, so it seems I got a little bit busy. I've been planning on doing this video for a while, as I mean, that 1 month later one did pretty well for itself, but whilst I've been busy, a busy little bee, making videos on all sorts, this one has sort of sat on the side and been a long time coming, more of a project rather than just a quick video to get up. So instead of 6 months, we're back to 8 months. Quickly before I get into the video, make sure you check the links out into the description to go into Aniba Games. You can get some great deals on pretty much any game. I mean, Kingdom Come Delivered is £17 and it's like 40 quid on Steam, so it's sort of a no-brainer. All the Total War games, pretty much any Steam games, but not even just Steam games. Any platform, Xbox, PS4, whatever. You can click the links in the description and support the channel. I mean, Mountain Blade, the full collection is like £3 and that's got everything in, so I mean, you might as well. Make sure you go and use code RESONANT to get a 3% discount, links in the description, and if you register now, which you don't have to, but you can, you also get another euro off it. So that's something you can do if you have the time and want to support the channel. In this video, I'm going to be recapping the initial start of Mordhau and what it accomplished and how it's changed through the last 8 months. Releasing on the 29th of April 2019, Mordhau caused a bit of a stir, bringing the masses of people into the medieval genre and paving the way for first-person medieval slashers that we saw once before in Chivalry Medieval Warfare. And yes, Chivalry 2 is still coming. I should probably do an update video on that. After its release though, and boom, the game started to drop off a little, a bit like me at 4 PM on Christmas Day. Yet it still kept its core player base. Even 6 or so months later, it doesn't really seem to be dropping below that 4,000 concurrent players at peak times, which is very reasonable for a game of this size. But soon after updates started to roll out, we had of course the natural fixes to bugs and balancing, which yes, at the beginning was a bit of an issue, but not so much anymore. They seem to have fixed a lot there and getting everyone happy with the way the games are fought. But in the mid-section, a few weeks or months after the release, it wasn't all that exciting for Mordhau. As I said, yes, we got some bugs and fixes, but these didn't really add anything new. They didn't keep the players excited and involved, which perhaps is one of the downfalls to the early boom and then its loss of players. But the last 5 months really has been what made the game, in my opinion, and what really started to shape it into what it is today. First off, we got the first really big update in June. Yeah, you know the one I mean. Adding some great new features, although they made the Zweihander less overpowered, which angers me to this day. But they added in mortars that have done nothing in the last few months of gameplay, but enraged every new player, wondering why they keep getting team killed. I know, if you play the game, especially at the start, you would have hated how many team killings happened, especially with those dastardly catapults on the camp map, but now it's even worse. The mortars are literally a death trap for anyone that uses them. I guess that's the sort of thing that they were made for though. But of course you have the new, well not so new anymore, crossroads map, adding that weird sort of outpost to the already played Horsefields map. Many red and blue knights riding around with literal tanks for horses running everyone down. Maybe it went a little bit too overboard there, but it was great. It revitalized a lot of the game and gave people a reason to load it back up, and boy did they. I remember for the next few weeks every server would be on Crossroads, even the ones that you joined that weren't initially on the Crossroads map. The end of the game would commence, votes would be stricken, and sure enough everyone would have hopped onto the Crossroads bandwagon, and sooner than you could say, balance the game, you'd be running as fast as you can to the center ruins, hoping to God you didn't get knackered by a passing cavalryman. But now it's time to fast forward a little bit. Quite a long time actually, mid to the end of October. And yes, I know there's a big gap of literally nothing happening. Improvements once again to balances and weapons and all that good stuff, but nothing really big. Nothing that would give the game its second wind. Until the 28th of October 2019, which is the actual mark for 6 months later. You can kind of see how I'm a bit late on the video now. This fateful day is when Feitoria was added, the long-awaited and teased new map for Mordhau. Well, the proper new map. Crossroads was nice and it kept people going, but it didn't really do all that much different. It felt a much more of an experimental map, so the devs could test new features on the players like mortars and bigger scale cavalry, almost as if they were testing this new map, Feitoria, adding a completely new, well, sort of game mode, but not quite. It uses pretty much the same concept as the frontline sort of conquest thing, but on a siege map. Players would start either in an outside camp or castle. The attackers would have to take over and sally forth defences in a more open pitch battle, much like the previous map, and of course the defenders would have to rush and, well, defend it. Later on, once taken, the attackers would have to rush up the walls, scale them, and take the castles and kill the fat man at the top, who can somehow crush through all of your attacks. It's basically a good version of the map Grad, if you know what I mean. I genuinely think it has become one, if not the favourite map for me at the moment, and a lot of players. Being able to get as close to a siege as we possibly can at this stage in Mordhau. Being able to tip rock baskets down on top of scaling warriors, coming up on so many ladders on all sides of the castle. And yes, you are able to drop the ladders down as well. More ballistas on the crenellations, giving you easy shots down on the camp of attackers, and of course being able to, as a defender, burn down the siege tower that is pushed up by the opposing forces. So many new things added more dynamic gameplay to Mordhau, and completely changing what was becoming a bit of a repetitive field battle game into a more well-rounded and exciting one. Just the inclusion of a siege that has different stages, different phases of attack and defend, each one being completely new from the other. So the game on the map can change so much even during just one of these matches, adding in new obstacles to overcome as a team. Furthermore, there are now rocks just lying around that the players can pick up and drop down, adding a little bit more accuracy to your rock shots on enemies, or sometimes, as you'll see, friendlies. This is Mordhau, after all. But there is something more on this map. Something that I've mentioned in the past that has never really been addressed by the devs, and I think it opens up a lot of conversation about the future of the game itself and where they plan to take it from here in the future. Around Feitoria there is a lot of space, and the map that is just unused. Not just the buildings in the castles that people tend not to use because they aren't really the centre of attention, but I mean outside the back of the castle. It's almost a whole nother map in itself that can be explored, yet nothing ever really goes on here. No spawns, no nothing. Which brings up the question, are there plans for more teams in the game? Maybe more of a free-for-all type thing? Or even more game modes that these maps have already been built to include and cater for in the future? I did mention in previous videos that the camp map had a castle in the background that could be used for a siege later on if they wanted to, and the same for mountain peaks. Then we actually got a siege map, which now has more space for open battles and even docks and so on. It just makes you wonder. Most recently though, the biggest change to Mordhau was the introduction of modding tools, and I can't wait to see what comes with them. Being able to completely overhaul the game, and not just in different eras, but of course the fixes for the game itself. Already new maps are popping up all over the place, but unfortunately modding maps are hard to come by on big servers, as having the need for every single player individually to download the map before joining proves to be a little too much effort for the time being. But it can only get bigger in the future, right? So let me know what mods you'd love to see down below. But where can Mordhau go in 2020? Well, since the new updates are coming out, the devs are doing a great job of keeping it up and coming. Most of the bugs and issues have been fixed, so I'd love to see some new maps, which I'm sure are being worked on as we speak, but maybe a bit more so, some new game modes. We did get the new Invasion game mode, which did add a few extra bits of gameplay to the multiplayer, but it wasn't a whole lot different from the front line that we had before. Now the game has a competitive mode, which maybe is good to look into some dedicated siege modes for the game and dedicated siege maps, because whilst Feitoria is great and it's getting there, it's still not really a siege game mode or a siege map. Some cool things I'd love to see in the future, and new mechanics in the game, such as destructible terrain, which would work amazing in these sieges. I know this is the least likely thing to happen, but I think it would be awesome anyway. Having the siege weaponry we already have in the game do something rather than just send infantry flying. You know, we've got catapults and all that sort of stuff, but they don't really do all that much. They were called siege weaponry for a reason, and that's not really meant for anti-infantry, so maybe it could be something in the future that is added. But I would love to see what you guys want most in 2020 for Mordhau, and whether you think it will be able to stay strong after the release of Chivalry 2, or will Chivalry 2 bring in too many new things to the table and drown out the new arrival, once again becoming the king of the first-person medieval game. But I hope you have all had a great Christmas, and I hope you have an amazing New Year. But until then guys, I will see you in the next one.